Commissioner, are you guys all ready? You guys ready? Harry, Jane, are you guys ready? Okay.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes,
Yes.
Commissioner Primus.
Could I just say something prior to getting started?
You certainly can.
Thank you. As chair of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, as chairman of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, I just want to thank all of you for being here this evening. It's great to see people getting involved in the public process. And I do want to extend my thanks to Commissioner Olson for agreeing to moderate this meeting tonight. You've all read many articles and heard a lot about this trail, and heard that I'm a staunch supporter, and that my fellow commissioner, Ms. Sterrett, is not as strong a supporter. So to have Commissioner Olson agree to moderate takes away any biases. So thank you all for your participation, and thank you, Commissioner Olson.
You're welcome, Commission Chair. Just a couple things I want to go over as we get started. Before I welcome staff, I want to go over just a couple of small house cleaning things. Is to make sure everybody understands that tonight's meeting is a public meeting. It's a community dialogue. One thing it is not a formal land use public hearing or a land use process. So if we get into the land use processes, then you'll be expected and you'll be notified and you can come back. But this is more of a community dialogue and public meeting, and it's not intended to be a land use process as we move forward tonight. The second thing is if you have a cell phone, I ask that you put it on vibrate or mute your cell phone for the courtesy of others. And if you have to either respond to a text or take a call or make a call, I do ask for, again, for the respect of others, that you go out into the lobby or outside through the rear doors to use your cell phone. The third thing is for those that may have the urge that the restrooms are located. If you go out the main door you came in on, take a left. There's a hallway right there with the water fountains. The restrooms are in there. And the last thing that I do is I want to thank a couple different organizations. I want to thank McMinnville Community Media. Tonight's public meeting, it's being recorded by McMinnville Community Media. You can't see them, but they're here. They're in the back room, and they're using remote cameras and remote microphones. And that will be for broadcast on MCM or McMinnville Community Media Television, and on Comcast that's cable channel 11, and if you're a Frontier subscriber, it's cable channel 29, and if you're a Dish or a DirecTV subscriber, unfortunately you will not be able to get it, but you can look at the guides on MCM to see either through the internet or TV and see when it's going to be broadcast. I'd also like to thank KOIC Radio. Because of KOIC, and Dave, you'll notice that this meeting tonight is being streamed live over the internet. So besides all of you in the audience, I'm sure there's quite a few people around the county and around even the state that are watching this. So it is being streamed live also for the internet. That being said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go around and introduce the staff that the county has here. And as I do that, I'll just ask them to just kind of wave their hand or raise up their hand so you'll know who they are. Again, I'm Rick Olson. I'm one of the Yamhill County commissioners. You heard from Commission Chair Primusich. And then to my left, the nice-looking one down at this end is Commissioner Mary Sterrett. We also have Brett Henry from our Yamhill County Parks Department. He's our parks manager. So Brett's over here at this table. We have Christian Bosch from our county council. He's the one that's sitting here to keep me in line. We also have Todd. Where's Todd? Todd. Oh, there's Todd. Todd Sadlow, our land use planning and associate county counsel. He's here with us tonight. Again, Laura Shawvold, our county administrator. She'll be kicking me from the other side. Our deputy county administrator, Ken Huffer, who is down here at this end. Ken Friday, our planning director, who's down here. Jane Mercer, right here, our grants and special projects manager. And unfortunately, Jane's going to be leaving us, but we also have Carrie Martin here. Carrie is taking her place as far as grants and special projects, and she'll be taking Jane's place. But who is really making this possible is some of our staff. We have, who did I forget? Oh, I forgot the sheriff. We always put the sheriff down.
Okay, I'll just sit down here and not say anything.
Yeah, we put the sheriff at the end so he can get out quick. But we have Sheriff Tim Swenson. And then for staff, and these are the people that really put this all together, we have McKaylee Fry. She's our paralegal. She's sitting right over here. She greeted you at the door. And we have Crystal Cox, our executive secretary, and she's running all of the IT stuff and taking the notes and with McKaylee and doing all of those sorts of things. A couple things tonight is I will be taking the questions or the comments in the order in which they were turned in. So first come, first serve, and that's the way we're going to run this. I just want to go over just a few ground rules for tonight's public meeting. You know, I know this is sometimes a very contentious issue, so what I'd like to ensure that all of the citizens that are here to attend, whether you're a proponent or whether you are an opponent, that everybody is treated with respect in a courteous manner. We hope not to see any loud outbursts or disruptive behavior, because that will go ahead and that will ruin the meeting for everybody. All citizens wish to provide public comment or ask questions in the meeting must complete the comment request form. So is anybody that wants to make a public comment or ask a question not completed a public comment card? I don't see any right now. All citizens, all questions and comments must be addressed to myself, and I will determine, based on staff knowledge and staff participation, who the appropriate panel member will be to answer the questions. So please do not direct questions directly at one of the staff. Please ask myself your question if it's a question, and then I will make sure that we have the right person there to answer it. Given that there may be some questions as far as the acquisition of the right-of-way that we're still currently under real estate negotiations with Union Pacific Railroad. So since we're into real estate negotiations, which can be heard under executive session of the public meeting laws, we will not be discussing as far as costs and what the county is going to pay for the railroad, since we're not done with that yet. Comments will be limited. Everybody will get about a 3-minute chance to show sufficient time for all attendees to participate. And as you can see in looking at the cards, we have quite a few. If somebody, I ask for, just from a time consideration, if somebody has made the exact same comment you have and your name is called forward, to come forward, you can just come forward, state your name and address for both the digital record, and then just say, I would like to agree with such and such, or my comment is the same. That way we can make sure everybody gets in. All questions are going to be documented by staff, and that's what Crystal and McKaylee and everybody are here for. And once this is over, all your questions and all your comments will actually be put together, consolidated, and they will show up on the new planning page for the Yamhelas Trail that's on the county's website. So you'll be able to go back and reference all the comments and all the questions. In addition, we will have some other comments. If they're not asked, we'll have some other questions that we anticipated may be asked, and those will be documented out there also. So there will be a question and answer section on the county's website. And so once that, it will take a while because today's Thursday, so it may take a few days or a week to get all those out there, but we'll make sure all of those get out there. So that being said, we've gone over a little bit of the process of what we're going to do tonight. Now we're going to dive right into the actual meeting. So what I'd like to do this time is get an outline of the project and where we are to date. And I'm going to turn this over to both Jane Mercer, our grant and projects manager, and also Brett Henry, the Yamhill County Parks manager. So Jane, Brent, it's your turn.
I think it's on. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Just holler if you can. So I am the Grants and Special Projects Manager for the county, but I am outgoing, and Carrie Martin has been hired to take on this project, so that will be great. So just a brief overview to give everybody the same information. The Yamhelas Westsider Trail is a proposed 17-mile multimodal transportation corridor that runs parallel to Highway 47. If you've been to any of our meetings, you've seen this map before. It is one that we have used over and over again, so it should be familiar to you. This project is worked on in partnership with the Friends of the Yamhelas Westsider Trail, a nonprofit organization. They approached the county in 2009 to partner and just to begin to look into the possibility, the feasibility, and to take advantage of that public-private partnership that could exist, and that's how the relationship started. In 2012, the Yamhelas Westsider Trail was adopted to our transportation system plan. Being the grants manager, I can talk to you about the detail of the grants. And just to give you an overview, this kind of shows you how the project has unfolded, because these types of projects a lot of times are based upon the funding that you can get to roll them out. So the first grant award that we were given to the project was from the Federal Highways Administration, which was administered by the Oregon Department of Transportation through the Transportation Alternatives Program. So that's FHA, ODOT, and the TAP program for short. So that is what got us started. The amount award for that was $1.7 million. The purpose of that grant was to focus on acquisition of the railroad, of the corridor. The second grant we got was from the National Park Service, which allowed us to develop the concept plan. This was a non-monetary grant. We didn't have to pay anything for it and didn't get any money, but we got lots and lots of technical assistance from the National Park Service, held many public meetings, and a design trip, which was part of that grant activity. Next, we were awarded a acquisition grant as well from Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. That was a smaller grant award for $126,000, which is all kind of being used towards the same acquisition area as the first grant that we were awarded. And then most recently, we were awarded a grant from the Connect Oregon grant program, which is funded by Oregon State Lottery dollars. This is for the the engineering and design of 3 stream crossings, as well as the construction of one of the larger stream crossings at Staggs Hollow Creek. And on the bottom here, it's kind of fuzzy, big, or I guess not over there. But the total amount of awards that we've gotten for this project so far are $2,868,392, and the county has paid as match for those grants in total $177,481.80. Just to give you some financial perspective for that, in relation to just the grants specifically. So, yeah, there you go.
All right, my turn. Thank you, Jane.
You might need to
Yeah, we're going to put it a little higher here since I'm a bit taller than Jane.
a little bit.
Can you hear me back there? I'm Brett Henry. I'm the Parks and Vision Manager here for Yamhill County, and welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about the planning process, kind of go over what we've done thus far. Also, want to talk a little bit about the concept plan. It's available online, so you can read much more about it, but I'm going to touch on that as well. So as Jane alluded to, we received several grants, one of them through ODOT, Transportation Enhancement Grant. And part of the stipulation of the grant was for preliminary engineering. And this was really critical because we were able to get a topographics survey of the right-of-way, and that really helped us with being able to map the overall trail corridor. So it gave us a center line and it gave us boundaries. And from that, then we knew that we needed to develop what's called a concept plan. So what is a concept plan? Typically, a concept plan is just a vision. It's very abstract in nature, but it doesn't contain any engineering drawings or designs or project budget, but it allows you to kind of visualize what it may look like when it's all accomplished. And we partnered with the National Park Service. This was a technical assistance grant, and they were very helpful in organizing the whole process. And as you can see, there's a lot of individuals that were involved in this plan, so there was a lot of partnerships. We took a consensus building approach to planning, involving the local community, stakeholders, and a lot of project partners. And this was a community engagement process where we wanted to listen to what people's concerns were and integrate their ideas into the overall concept plan. The planning process. So as I discussed earlier, we got a physical inventory so we could map it. And then we began with a community survey that went to all the Yamhill County residents. Then there was a series of open houses and workshops. And then the big reveal, the big workshop was the design charrette or workshop. And from that, we were able to collaborate with landscape architects from all around Oregon. And I'll address can you have a question?
Well, a lot of us over here, you said that there was a Yamhill County consensus. None of us back here got.
So I think we'll be taking questions.
Ma'am, we're going to did you fill out a question card?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will get to that. This is the presentation portion. We will get to your question. And when we call you to ask that question, then you can go ahead and ask that question.
Sure, thank you very much. So getting back to...
And just to be clear, this was just for the concept plan. This is not by any means the first or the last concept meeting or consensus building planning part of the process. So this was just in relation to the grant and the steps of the grant that we're required to put together the initial concept plan, just putting out the idea on paper for the trail.
Yeah, and these are by no means final plans. So we were just getting kind of an idea or a vision for what it could look like. So as I was saying, there were a lot of open houses and workshops. We had a design charrette where we were able to gain a lot of input from landscape architects who had a unique perspective and gave us a lot of really, really powerful designs. And then we followed up with stakeholder workshops throughout the community, from Gaston all the way down to McMinnville. So looking at some of the design recommendations, trailheads. So what is a trailhead? That's an area where there's public access to the trail, and that can be through amenities such as parking, you can have restroom facilities, as well as typically an information kiosk and a map to orient you. Also, we're talking about a 17-mile long stretch, so it's a really diverse landscape. And what's really neat is trying to figure out the history and the culture and the environment of the area and interpret it to the public. So there's a lot of those elements in the concept plan. And something that's really critical is there's a lot of street crossings, so we wanted to make sure that safety was paramount. So there's going to be signage both on the trail and on the streets. There's also going to be removable bollards that'll prevent vehicles from accessing the trail. And then there's also going to be striping, and at some of the more busy intersections, there's going to be the possibility for flashing lights. Another thing is vegetative screening. So we all know that privacy and Trespassing is a concern, so we are definitely willing to work with people as we design this, as we get into further development, and look at landscaping that can be a really effective vegetative screen. And as you look at the picture on the right, everybody knows those, Himalayan blackberries. They're found all along the trail. Very effective screen, a painful screen sometimes. And it works in more ways than one. It also helps with trespassing. Here's your trail cross-section. Most of the areas along the trail are 60-foot right-of-way. So that allows a lot of flexibility of the design. And this is going to be a multimodal trail. A multimodal means there's multiple ways that transportation can occur along the corridor, and that's based on the surfacing. There's going to be a 10-foot wide surface, and that's going to be mainly for the people who want to walk or jog or ride bicycles, separated by a soft surface, approximately 6 feet in width, and that'll be areas more like the Cove Orchard area that are more rural, and we plan on allowing equestrian use as well. A really interesting thing that came out of our design workshop was cattle crossings, and I've never seen this before. It's real similar to like a train crossing on the street, where you see, the bars come down, but it's real simple. There's a couple property owners that own property on either side of the right-of-way, and currently they're moving farm equipment and cattle and that sort of thing. And so what this will allow for is us to swing gates and minimize the conflict between the trail users and farming. Some recommendations. So what we really wanted to do was get a good look at each one of these communities, and we're going to make the features correspond with the communities where they exist. So in Carlton, for instance, there's a real history of industry there, and there's a Madison grain elevator and silos. Will make an outstanding destination point. And if you go down to Yamhill, you have Stag Hollow Creek, and that picture on your right is an artist's rendering of a long bridge. Along the more northern section, up towards Gaston and the county line, is a brand new wildlife refuge, Wapato Lake National Wildlife Refuge. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been a real strong project partner with us all along, and we're trying to find ways to connect with the refuge that will allow visitors really unique access to get in there. There's raised levee around the perimeter of the refuge, and there's just beautiful vistas and views of wildlife, so we're really excited about that. As Jane said earlier, and I want to keep reiterating that all this information is available to the public. You can get on the Yamhill County website, and there's a link to the concept plan. And I want to sincerely thank you for attending, and Jane does as well. And we definitely look forward to asking any of your questions.
Answering your questions, yep.
Yep.
If I might add, well, they're shutting down, just so you're aware, if you did not see them out on the counter in the lobby or did not have a chance to pick one up, there are both hard copies of the actual concept plan. And for those people that don't like to carry paper around or kill a tree, such as myself, what we've actually decided to do is that concept plan is also available on USB sticks, and there's also some of the USB sticks out in the lobby also. So if you don't want to carry all the paper around, you can pick up a USB stick. If we run out, just tell one of the people here and we will make sure that you get one. At this time, what I'd like to do, we're going to go into questions. Before we do, there is one person in the audience. She's not a speaker tonight, but I would like to introduce, and if you have any questions from her from a state level or Oregon Department of Transportation level as far as multimodal corridors and that kind of stuff, she will be here during the breaks and maybe afterwards to talk to you. And I'd like to introduce this time Jenna Berman. So Jenna, where are you sitting at? She's all the way back here under the clock, and she is an active transportation. She's an active transportation liaison with the State of Oregon Department of Transportation, and she came to observe the meeting and see how the meeting goes. But if you have anything about what multimodal corridors are, what they work in general, her questions have to be pretty general in nature, but she will be available to take questions. Okay, that being said, for the rest of the evening, what we're going to do is I'm going to take about 45 minutes in comments and questions. Then we'll take about a 10 to 15 minute break, let everybody get up, stretch, go outside, get some fresh air. Then we will go into the second part of our audience comments and questions, which will last about 60 minutes. And then after that, we'll spend the last 10 or 12 minutes going over the next steps. So that being said, and we do have somebody timing 3 minutes for me, and we'll ensure with probably about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Laura, 2, 4, 5, we will let you know that you're getting close to the end of your time. So again, as I call your name, what I would like you to do is come up, sit down, state your name and your address and your city, state, and all that for the record, so we have a record that you were here tonight. And the first one I'd like to call is forward is Dan Gray, who would like to provide an oral comment regarding the trail. So Dan, if you want to come on forward.
Great, thank you.
And you might be able to take that off the books now and get it down closer to you.
Thank you. My name's Dan Gray. My address is 9750 Northwest Sweetwater Lane, Carlton. When I first heard about this project, I was thrilled. We live in rural Yamhill County, but we have horses, we ride bikes, we have dogs, we have children, and this to me seems like a great opportunity, a rare opportunity to add a significant improvement to our community that we can all share. And I'm really impressed with all the work that I've seen people do. This looks like a real quality, wonderful opportunity, and I hope it works out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And again, what I'll ask until the meeting's over, if you could please, for the courtesy of others, hold your applause, whether you're an opponent or a proponent or whatever. So the next one is Peter Higber. Is that correct? Peter Higbee. Okay, Peter Higbee, and he would like to provide an oral comment regarding the trail. So Peter, sit down, just state your name and your address, please.
Okay, name is Peter Higbee. I live at 1110 West 2nd Street here in McMinnville. Basically, I'd just like to say, who should own this piece of property? The railroad's going to sell it, and the best person to own it is the county. They're the only persons that are going to take into consideration what the neighbors think. Lastly, I'll just make a comment. I really dislike those signs. It's supposed to be an open meeting, public property, and they're plastering signs outside. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is Paul Cooney, and he would like to provide some oral comments. So, Paul?
Good evening. Paul Cooney. My address is 4570 Southeast Lafayette Highway in Dayton. I've grown up in this area my whole life. My family's been in the area I'm third generation farmer. And it's disheartening to see this coming from my standpoint. I enjoy biking, I enjoy walking, I enjoy water sports. I'm an active individual. I think this would be great in the right spot, but this area is not the right spot. A lot of people have moved to this county because of the beauty and of the agriculture, and this is in direct conflict to why a lot of people have came here. So I just think everyone should rethink this whole thing and how it's going to affect this county long-term, including the reasons a lot of people love it today.
Okay, I just need to ask you a question for a minute, Paul. I'm looking at your form here, and I just want to ensure
Marked it wrong.
that you mark proponent, and that should be marked opponent.
Yeah.
Okay, I will change that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is Katie Schwab, and she would like to provide oral comments. So Katie, if you can come up, please.
My name's Katie Schwab. My address is 323.
Can you pull the mic a little bit closer to you, Katie, so everybody back can hear you?
My baby voice doesn't carry. My address is 323 Southeast Cowles in McMinnville. I just am moving to McMinnville, so I've lived on the Dairy Dell and Fennel Creek Trail for 20 years. Excuse me. I just want to say it's been very, very nice being on the trail. People are courteous. They are very friendly with their dogs. They carry their dogs on chains, on leashes. They're very courteous on making sure their dogs are cared after with pooper scoopers. You know, we have bags on the trail, so people are very courteous that way. We also have the trail that connects schools, both grade schools and middle schools. There's no crime, and I just want to support the trail system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker who would like to again provide oral comments is Michael McNally.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Mike McNally. My wife Marianne and I live at 21455 Northeast Burkett Hill Road, Yamhill, Oregon. The first job I had in, quite frankly, grade school, high school, was haying on a farm. Learned what it felt like to be out in the fields in the agriculture. Moved through a career which put me in a Fortune 500 company, CFO, COO kinds of jobs. Very intense type of life. Have become a proponent of what people refer to as a slow life. And I think that this country, this world needs people to become connected with what it means to live more of a slow life. Instead of scheduling your world on 15, 30-minute schedules, as I did in corporate America, to move to first agriculture, where you go by the seasons. And we own a forest, and some of my greatest joy is planting trees where it's going to be a 40, 50-year time frame. I believe the more people that we can get out to experience, you know, the country life, the beautiful scenery we have in Yamhill County here, will encourage them to embrace the slow life. And I think that this trail will be a great cause for that. I personally have seen from our families from Iowa and our farm families from Iowa and Nebraska, as the corporate farms have come in and got bigger and bigger, there were less and less jobs. Those small towns have died. And I think that this can actually increase the population, spread taxes over a larger group of people, and actually reduce taxes, not increase taxes. And to suggest that it's bad for farming, I don't see there's anything that you can't do along the trail, that the farming requirements along the trail will be the same as the farming requirements along any highway or county road. So I think we need to promote slow life. I think it can actually reduce taxes if we get a greater tax base, and I really don't see it bad for farming as a farmer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we have a Sharon Klein, and she would like to provide oral testimony, and oral comment. Okay, I'm sorry. With a great orange and black shirt, I should.
It's all right. It's kind of a lifelong
Right,
curse.
and then
what can I say?
just to let you know that it'll be posted on the web that he also provided a written comment also.
Yeah, it's not very well written, though. So I would just like to speak in favor of the trail very quickly. I ride my bike around the community, and I also work for one of the school districts locally. It concerns me that there's not safe ways for children to get from community to community. There's really no shoulders in the roads around in Yamhill County. The shoulders that are on 47 are very, very small, and I know I kind of get buzzed by trucks fairly often when I'm trying to ride out there. And I would just like to say that I believe a trail of this nature that connected the communities together would be good for safety. It would allow people who are too young to drive to be able to move between communities. Kids from Yamhill could go and use the pool in Carlton, so on and so forth. And it would allow folks who want to get out and get some exercise to be able to do so in a safe manner. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one we have is Linda Klein, and I'm glad you clarified where you stand. So next one, she can come forward, please, is Linda Klein, and Linda Klein would like to provide some oral comment. So Linda, come on forward, please.
My name is Linda Klein. I live at 432 North 8th Place in Carlton. I am the marketing chair for the Friends of the Yamhelas Westsider Trail, and I've been active with the group for about a little over 3 years. And part of what got me active in this is safety. That was probably my biggest priority. But I just think it'd be a great asset for the community as well. And as I've been working on this, it keeps reminding me, because I know it's a concern for adjacent landowners, and it's brought up a lot of memories for me from my own family. My family grew up with my grandparents on one side of Highway 99 and my dad living on the other side. And it was much like living on Highway 47. They shared assets, they shared livestock, they shared duties of both owning ranches. And then I-5 came through the valley, right where 99 was. And all of a sudden it needed a larger right-of-way. And so through eminent domain, or paying very little for land, they took pieces of those farms. And the biggest problem was, well, it cut off access to our livestock. It cut off the shared farming ability for us. It cut off our driveway, which was the biggest problem. And I bring this up because I keep thinking this as I'm looking at this project. And the thing is we're not doing all those things. We're not cutting off people's access to their land. We're not cutting off their ability to farm. We're trying to work with them to mitigate the problems. And so I just want to encourage you, as you're going through this process, to be brave, because all infrastructure projects have some people that have to have some compromise in their life, that come up against problems with it. And just like my dad did, I think all of us can be grateful that everybody that lives along I-5 had to give a little bit so that we could have that infrastructure. And right now my dad's in his 80s. He'll be gone someday, but that infrastructure will still be there. And someday all these landowners will be gone as well, but infrastructure will still be there. So I just want to encourage you to think about the future and not just the moment, and not just the inconvenience of the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker who would like to provide oral comments is Myron Redford. So Myron, if you want to come forward, please. Myron, you can come on forward now. I guess I should talk a little bit louder so you can hear me, but it's your turn, Myron.
I'm Myron Redford from 11750 Southeast Eola Hills Road in Amity. You're probably wondering what the hell somebody from the south end of the county is doing coming to comment on this. I have always been impressed by the pathway from Dallas down to Independence that runs from Highway 22 down to Independence. And I drive by there and I see people out walking and riding their bikes and so forth. And when I heard about this trail in Yamhill County, I said, I think that would be an ideal way to get people into the county. I think people have already talked about the dangers of people riding bicycles on Highway 47. They're just asking to be killed or injured. The other thing is that I'm sure that Yamhill, Carlton, and Gaston would appreciate more business from people, and most of the people that are going to use this road are probably going to come from the Portland metro area, come out to see our country, and they will spend money in our restaurants, our wineries, and it will help us. I think that the type of people, that the majority of the people that will be using this facility are not the type of people that are going to vandalize farms and cause problems. In fact, they will probably, because they're there, mitigate that influence. I'm a farmer, and I realize what it's like, and I know that people are worried about, their spray program and so forth, but I'm sure these things can be worked out for the greater good of the county. I think we should approve it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Myron. Okay, the next one who would like to provide a oral comment, we will have Susan Crum come forward. Susan.
Susan Crum, address is 15117 Northeast Yamhill Road, Yamhill. In my 24 years of military service as an officer and a leader, I grew to understand how important morale, welfare, and health is to each person in my command and in their families and elsewhere. And as leaders of this county, I know you understand the same things, that if there's an opportunity for us to provide a way where people can live and have an hour or two of a healthy lifestyle, to reduce their stresses, to do things in an open environment where you get fresh air and sunshine, that we should be doing everything we can to promote healthy living in that way. I see we had the farmers market out here today, and there was an awful lot of healthy stuff going on there, and I know you support those things too. And that's, how I feel about the trail, and every single time I drive between my home and going into Portland, going through Gaston, I see that where the trail is going to be, and I am so excited about the future of that and being able to go on that trail myself. And I hope you'll share in that passion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next person that would like to provide oral comment is, and I'll have him come forward, is David Brock. David, if you'd like to come forward, please.
Hi, I'm David Brock, 6701 Northwest Lilac Hill Road in Yamhill. And I'll also point out that I'm a own a residence in Carlton as well, which is on the trail. I'm here to express my strong support for the trail, for safety of cyclists, walkers, and kids, for health and recreation for our community, and for support of local business. And personally, as an owner along the trail, I very much support a developed and nicely kept trail rather than the swath of blackberry and abandonment that cuts through Carlton at the moment. I'm a walker, I'm a cyclist. I've probably gone 50 to 100 times up to Banks to ride or walk on the Vernonia Trail. And I think it's a really good model for what we're trying to do here. It's a trail, goes through open land, beautiful land, a couple of small towns just like we would do here. There are people of all ages, families, kids, walking, running, enjoying the scenery, enjoying the air, and getting out on that trail. There are businesses that are visibly benefiting from the business from those people in both of those towns. And so whenever I hear people that fear what the trail might bring, I really would like to invite them up to the Banks Vernonia Trail to see what I see. And that is a great community asset, both to people who are visiting as well as locals. I've heard a lot of people saying that we shouldn't use that as a good comparison because it supposedly runs just through parkland. I invite you to take out a map like I did. If you do, you'll see that of that 21 miles, 3.5 miles goes through Stubbs Stewart State Park. The other 17 miles is bordering private land, neighborhoods, farms, and private land. Finally, I think a lot of what we're here about is, I think, Commissioner Olson, you've talked about transparency in this process, and I think on either side of the issue, we are all concerned about how the county spends taxpayer dollars. I know I am. And as part of that, when we talk about what the trail might cost, we should also make sure we're paying attention to what it might cost if we don't do the trail. As I understand, the trail is already part of the Yamhill County transportation.
About 30 seconds, David.
Transportation system. And a lot of it is in lieu of developments of extra safety on Highway 47. So we need to talk about what would those extra costs be on Highway 47 and possibly other roads if we didn't do the trail. So with that, I just hope we don't lose this great opportunity for a community asset. I support the trail.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, our next speaker who'd also like to provide oral comment is Veronica Hinks. So Veronica, if you can come forward, please.
Good evening. I'm Veronica Hinkus, and I live at 16375 Northwest Meadow Lake Road in Carlton. I've spoken with you in the past as a tourism professional about the important tourism and economic asset that the Yamhelas Trail would be for the county, and so I'm not going to go into that again tonight. You've already heard from me on that. Tonight, I just want to talk to you as a local resident. I grew up working on and keeping a horse on farms outside of Salem and Eugene all through my childhood. And so when my husband wanted to move out here, I was really excited. It felt like coming home. But another reason I was really excited is because I'm a cyclist, and I really thought I was moving to cycling nirvana. But it didn't take much time of living on Meadow Lake Road when we realized that really wasn't the case, and we were pretty disappointed. We had thought we'd be able to ride into town for lunch, ride up to Yamhill for a bite, and we just don't feel safe on the roads right around Carlton. I don't feel safe riding alone on any of our roads out here. I'll ride with a group, but schedules don't always work for that. I usually have to drive my bike somewhere to ride with them. My husband is a novice cyclist, and when we lived in Portland, he would ride with me on the trails there. But out here, there's nowhere he feels safe to ride. And so he just doesn't. It would be really wonderful if we had a safe place where we could ride together, get the exercise we need, and stay out of the way of the cars and trucks. And a place to bring our grandkids who live in Newburgh. We'd love to bring them out and have them ride with us also as they grow up and help to show them a healthy lifestyle as well. So we're just one example of how this trail could be really improve the health and quality of life for Yamhill County families. And I understand the concerns of the property owners along the railroad right-of-way, but there are so many great examples around the state and around the country of trails through rural areas, and there's a lot of best practices that you can and have been looking at out there, and I believe those measures that you are looking at to protect property and mitigate issues will also work here as they have elsewhere. So I urge you to continue moving forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next one I'd like to provide oral comment on my list is Ken Wright. So Ken, if you can come forward, please.
Hi, Ken Wright, Yamhill, Oregon. I wanted to talk about three things first that are, I think, important to all of us when it comes to livability in our community. First is safety. I've served on a commission, a transportation commission, for the benefit of ODOT for quite a few years. And in all those years, the one thing that's become patently clear is that the only time people are safe is when you separate modes. As long as bikes and cars and trucks and farm equipment are using the same space, there will be deaths. It's the way it is. You can't stop it. The only time we can create true safety is to separate a mode. And here we have an opportunity with this trail to separate bikes, to separate runners, walkers, from the dangers of our highways. And they are terrible. They're incredibly dangerous. The second thing is health. We have very few options for healthy activities in our small rural communities, especially taking Yamhill, Carlton, Gaston. There aren't a lot of opportunities to simply go outside and recreate. This trail would be fantastic for that, an amazing opportunity for all people of all ages to be out there doing a healthy activity. Connectivity. You heard from others talking about how great it would be for our kids to be able to go from community to community without being on that highway. And there just is no way to get. There is no way to get from small town to small town without risk, as it is. And this trail would go a long way to solving that. I know that there's concerning for farming is a big concern for me. I farm 220 acres. I don't want to be impacted by this trail in a negative way. I know that the spraying is the biggest concern for most people farming. I get that. But it is true that there are already remedies for spray issues that exist with the state. And it turns out also that at the federal level, the AEZ, or the application exclusion zones, that are concerning everybody coming out of EPA.
About 30 seconds, Ken.
Thank you. Those are about to be rescinded federally. They're going to be gone. Statewide, that's different. The state can decide what it wants to do, with that language. But we already farm, all of us are already farming next to roads and highways right now. Nothing is changing with the trail. There is no special language regarding a trail. It's important to remember. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one is we'll have come forward is Wayne Webke. So Wayne, come on forward.
Name is Wayne Webke, 1375 Meadow Lake Road. I'm a member of the Friends of the Yamhelas Westsider Trail. I've been part of that organization from its inception and been part of the organization of public meetings and everything that we've gone on. And I want to address one of the things that has been come up as an opposition to what we have been doing. And I've mentioned this once at one of your Thursday meetings, transparency. Been accused of not being transparent with what we've been doing, the process, that type of thing. From the inception, before we're even an organization, we're getting started as an organization, transparency, getting out to the community was paramount concern. That was important. Our mission was, as the Friends, was being the communicators to the community meetings. We had 7 public meetings. All of them, we wanted to make sure that the adjacent landowners were aware of those and hoped that they would attend our meetings. So we sent them personal letters to each and every one. We set up information booths at Farmers Market. I was out there today. We go to the community functions, Carlton Fun Days, Derby Day. I've been up to Forest Grove because a lot of the people up there are looking at the north end of the trail. Newspaper articles, there's been numerous newspaper articles in support, non-support, but primarily in support from what I've seen from my bubble that I live in. The meetings that you've had in approving the trail, discussion of the trail, these have all been public meetings, all been publicized. The anybody that wanted to, would be interested, could participate in those. So I kind of want to put that to bed as best I can as far as us not being transparent. That's been a paramount issue for us.
About 30 seconds, Wayne.
So basically that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one who would like to provide oral comments is Bart Ryerson. So Bart, if you can, I know you're at the back, if you can come up, please.
Thank you. Bart Ryerson, 110 Hazelnut Drive, Newburgh. I'm in support of the trail. I'm on Chehalem Park and Rec District Board, and speaking for the board, we think that having trails in your community provides a better quality of life. We think there's economic benefit from people coming from outside our community to visit. But we find that something that I haven't heard anybody talk about tonight is the safety from discouraging like homeless camping and people doing drugs and stuff along areas like this. We find that when we get public out to visit these places, that kind of discourages that kind of activity. So I think a lot of the fears that people have of vandalism and trespassing, that we find that getting the more people out in those areas kind of discourages the bad activity. And then I've heard several people talk about safety, but I think that's so important to be able to travel from both communities and keep some of that traffic separated from the hikers and bikers. And we also appreciate the fact that the plan so far is multimodal, and you'll provide access for people to use the trail how they best see fit. So the equestrian use and bicycles and walking, and we just I like the way the plan is put together, and we're strongly in support. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Right now, before we have our next speaker come up, I'd like to take a minute, and for full transparency standpoint, I'd like to apologize for both the proponents and the opponents. It's my understanding that when the cards were sorted, they were supposed to be randomly taken in first order, and as I saw everybody speak, it was pretty evident that that wasn't occurring. So what we had staff do is actually mix them up more. So for the rest of the evening, we will be taking them in random order. So for that, I'd like to apologize. It was not anyone's intent to make sure we had all of one group to another. It's just the way the cards were sorted. So starting with the rest of this session, then the next session, we'll actually move to cards being in random order. So I'd like to apologize for that. So our next one is, I'd like to provide oral comment, would be Jim McMaster. So Jim.
Yes, thank you. I'm Jim McMaster. I live at 18445 Rainbow Lane, kind of right off of Highway 240, and I'm one of the crazy guys that periodically rides 240 Sunday morning as early as possible. Otherwise, I would not ride 240. But, you know, the one thing that's in the news all the time is talking about small town America, small cities, Carlton, Yamhill, Gaston, Amity, all those cities are dying and so on and so forth. But I ride the trail, it's tough for me, but I ride the trail from Banks to Vernonia. And when I get there, I eat in Vernonia. Or if I go later, I come back and eat in Banks. And as I'm sitting there eating, I see all these people, all these other bikers and all these other folks that are walking and so on, coming up and shopping and eating and so on. I think it is important for people to realize how the bikers and the walkers and the folks that are riding horses can help these small communities, because it's been a mantra, they're dying. The other thing is that my wife works in Gaston, she's a teacher, and I would love to be able to drive my car to Carlton, park it, and ride to Gaston safely, have dinner with her, and ride back to Carlton. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here is economic development, I think, a little bit. And I understand where the farmers are coming from. I understand all the comments that are being made. But if we're looking at all these small towns and want them to succeed, especially in tough economic times, you need these folks coming through. And I have to end with Carlton a little bit because I did my first and last group ride, 100, 200 people. It was too hard for me, so I don't think I'll do another one. But the reality of that is that when I was going through Carlton, and I live right off of Newburgh, but as I was going to Carlton, all the people were standing out there, the people that live in Carlton, all those folks downtown, and they were handing out water, and it was such a great feeling to go to these small towns, and that's why I go back. Newburgh I look as a big town, I really do. I mean, it's a bedroom community for Portland, but I look at Carlton and Yamhill and these other towns, and that's why I want to go, and if I wasn't biking and doing that, I probably wouldn't be. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I have this one right. The next one who'd like to provide oral comment is Ted DeChalet. Is that correct or close to correct? Well, as long as it's close and you got up, I guess that's close enough.
I knew it was me. Hi, my name's Ted DeChatelet. I live at 306 Southeast Davis Street here in McMinnville, and I want to add my support to the trail as well. McMinnville's a wonderful place to live. And as a parent of a 12-year-old, when you think about what are the things that make McMinnville such a great community, the big five come to mind. That's Discovery Park, Dragon Park, City Park, the Minnville Aquatic Center, 3rd Street Pizza, and Serendipity. Those are the five that you get out and do with your kids. And I would love to see that list expand. This trail would be a perfect expansion of the great things to do with your kids. I packed my kid up last weekend. We went to Shampooey Park to ride the trail. And we went to the end, we got ice cream, we came back. And we got in the car on the way home, and my kid went, man, that was really fun. And to be able to do that without having to drive half an hour each way would be tremendous. So I encourage you to continue going forward with this trail. I think it's a great idea. And I would say the sooner we can connect it to downtown McMinnville, the better. That would be fantastic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. The next person that would like to provide oral testimony is John Weiser. So John, come on forward if you would, please.
I'm John Weiser. I live at 7680 Northeast Gun Club Road. Property kind of borders possibly the track. Now I'm not sure after the meeting.
John, can you pull that a little closer to you,
A couple
please?
weeks ago, and that's a question I'd like to ask afterwards. Thank you, Rick, for being getting voted onto the board. For a couple of years, we tried to get a public meeting, and Stan and Alan denied that. So thank you, Mary and Rick, for having this meeting. I got so many things to do, I'm going to try and hit what I can. As far as bicycle safety, right now we've had one person killed in 25 years on Highway 47. If you put bikes on a trail, you're going to have more people killed because they are going to ride to the trail. People in McMinnville are going to ride to the trail. A family's going to think they can jump on Poverty Bend or Westside and ride over and head into Carlton or come out 240. It is not going to make it safer no matter what anybody says. Second, we have our liability insurance. They say if this trail goes up if it goes by our place, our insurance will go up, and there's nothing we can do about that. If somebody gets hurt on our property and they decide to sue us, I doubt very much that city or county council is going to come to our defense. It's just not going to happen. We moved to the country, and it was country, and there were train tracks, and we didn't have anybody going by the house. It was quiet in the same way all the other neighbors moved out there for the same reason, or family farms. I doubt the people in town that live in a cul-de-sac or on some side street or whatever have people going by their house from 6 in the morning until 9 at night. And if they did, I'm sure they'd be a little more upset than, I'm sure they'd be upset. So it impacts everybody along this trail. It is not the Banks-Vernonia Trail. There are
About 30 seconds, John, then we'll let you answer your question.
Banks-Vernonia is mostly forest, farmland, and you get into the houses at Vernonia and a few at Banks. This trail goes right through people's front yards, 5 feet from some people's houses. It is not like other trails if this goes through. So anyway, just the people in town need to understand that it does impact all of us along this trail.
Okay, John, why don't you go ahead? I noticed on your comment card, since you did check, both will go ahead and let you ask a question.
A couple weeks ago, the Yamhelas people had a meeting. I went to it, and I think you were there, Stan. And they said they were not going to go past Carlton. And then I see we still have 17 miles of trail, which would put it down to Gun Club, if I'm correct. What is the truth here?
I think that's probably best. Do you want to take that, Jane or Brett? Would that be one better for you to answer, since you're on the master plan and the parks director? So,
Yeah, let me clarify your question. Are you asking, does it go down to Gun Club Road?
Okay, last week, or a couple weeks ago, the Westsider meeting at the community center.
On the 24th.
Okay,
Right.
said it was not going past Carlton, that the parking area and stuff would be in Carlton. They would not go south of Carlton. Is that true, or is that false?
So the planned southern terminus at this point is Gun Club Road in Carlton.
So what we were told last week was not true.
I think he might have been talking about trailheads.
No, they said it would not go south of Carlton.
Okay.
That they did not have the money, or whatever it was, to go south of Carlton. So let's get this straight now, because I don't want to end this without knowing.
Yeah, so I think, great, thanks for the question, very valid. Is it going to go by my house or not? So the acquisition area will be south of Carlton, just 500 feet south of Gun Club Road, and it will continue north of there. And however, for development will be phased over time. So I think what Dan Miller, who was speaking, correct, that's who said that, I believe, he was mentioning that, the connection and the real key points for this is really between the cities of Carlton and Yamhill and Gaston, getting kids to school safe, creating that open transportation access. And so having it go south to Carlton is really, without a clear connection to McMinnville at this point, development for that area will be, 10, 20 years away, I would guess. It's a long ways out. So I think maybe that's what he was pointing to, that at this time, there's no trailhead planned, as we met with the community there and recognized that wasn't an ideal place for a trailhead. So that is no longer in the plans. However, the acquisition area will fall just south of Gun Club Road. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, it's much better than what we got a couple weeks ago.
I'm happy to answer your question.
Yeah, I think, John, from an elected official standpoint, I could answer it this way: is we are in the process of negotiating for the entire abandoned right-of-way that's been abandoned by Union Pacific. That, which includes just to south of Gun Club Road, as Jane explained, that doesn't mean that immediately the entire abandoned area, the 70 miles of the abandoned area, is going to be developed. But we are, for the county, we are acquiring all the abandoned right-of-way. So I hope what Jane said, I hope that clarifies things. But are you going to see a trail immediately and a trailhead from Gun Club to Carlton. You might see one in 10 years, you might see one in 40 years. I mean, it depends on what financing is available and how the grants and everything go. So,
Okay. Thank you.
the next one that we have that would like to speak and provide oral comment is Don Clements. So, Don, if you'd come forward, please.
Don Clements, representing Chehalis Park and Recreation District, 125 South Elliott Road, Newburgh, Oregon. I've been in this field, park and recreation, building trails for 53 years. So I've seen a lot. I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said. The one thing I do know, whether you're a proponent or an opponent, there's going to be a time in the future where people who are opposed to this trail will take their family, their relatives out to that trail. And the reason I know that is because we have in Newburgh a very controversial issue. And I remember a man and wife coming in my office and saying, "We fought you with everything we had." And I said, "I appreciate that, because you fighting made it better." So let's think about that, whether you're an opponent or a proponent. In the future, we're going to come together and we're going to have something that's great for the community. So let's keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. What we're going to do is we're scheduled for a break at 8:45. So the next gentleman would like to provide oral comment and ask a question. So after he is done, we'll break for about 10 to 15 minutes. If we get out of here at 8:45, we will reconvene at 9 o'clock. So I would ask everybody to be back in their seats someplace about 8:55. So the next person that would like to come forward and provide oral comments and ask a question is Volker Block. So Volker, if you can come forward, please.
Yes, the name's Volker Block, 19443 Northwest Meadow Lake Road. I know all about your bicyclists on stupid roads. And this is getting a little ridiculous. Your approach to this trail, to me, is way out of line. Now, if you want to deal with this trail, why don't you do it this way? You tell me the trail is from A to B, and give me the cost of what putting that trail in is, and put it up to the vote. But this backdoor crap that you guys are pulling right now, I do not agree with. I don't know how else I can put it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Block. And you had a question also. Volker, did you have a question also you wanted to ask, or just your testimony, just your comments? Okay. I will turn that one over to our parks manager, over to Brett Henry.
And law enforcement is here. Who's going to enforce any of the laws on that road? Who's going to maintain the maintenance on that? Is a big question.
I think
wonderful thing that you guys have proposed for that. That's wide open for vandalism.
we will go ahead and let Brett Henry answer your first question.
Yeah, so the planned maintenance is going to be a partnership between the county and Friends of the Yamhelas Westsider Trail. So when you talk about maintenance, you're looking at day-to-day maintenance, which is typically mowing, landscaping, picking up trash, cleaning restrooms, that sort of stuff. A lot of that can be accomplished through volunteers. There's adopted trail programs that can help defray a lot of the cost to taxpayers. And then the other part of maintenance is more long-term. So you're looking at 15, 20-year type maintenance. And that could be crack sealing or chip sealing, or repair of bridges, resurfacing the asphalt, and that sort of thing. The Friends group is going to have annual fundraisers. And through those fundraisers, they're going to establish an endowment fund. And that endowment fund will collect interest over time. And that will be dedicated strictly to long-term maintenance. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh.
Law enforcement.
Okay, and now I'll give the sheriff, or illustrious sheriff, the chance to answer a question about the other security issues and everything that Mr. Block brought up.
So as of right now, I've reached out to other sheriffs across the state. As you know, there are several of these trails throughout Oregon, primarily up in the metro area. And in talking with the sheriffs, primarily between Washington County, Tillamook County, Columbia County, with the Banks to Vernonia Trail, they basically said the same thing that what I expected, is that with the increase of staff or people out there, they expected to have a huge rise in vandalism and different types of issues that they didn't see. The number of people that were out there traveling to use it in a lawful manner tends to keep people that are causing those type of problems away from being out there, just on the mere fact that there's more people out there. However, can anybody 100% say that there's not going to be any issues in any area of the county, like in our county parks? Anytime we look at putting in a new park, there is no guarantee that you're going to have a 100% crime-free zone, but the sheriff's office would look at all different aspects of being able to go out there and patrol that area. I've got a cadet group that have already mentioned that they would love to take their gator and their bikes and ride up and down and provide some sort of security patrol during the summers. We have our search and rescue and our posse that I'm sure would be more than happy to go up and down some of those areas. So if this is something that does go in, we're tasked with providing a public safety to the citizens and all the tourists that come to our area, and we'll do everything we can within our staffing to provide that service.
Okay, thank you very much. And Volker, thank you very much for your comments and your questions. So it's a little after 8:45, so let's go ahead and take a break and try to be back in your seats at, let's say, 8:55, so we can get started sharply at 9 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much. Everybody's kind of quieting down. Everybody's back in their seat now. I noticed finally today it looks like we have some decent weather outside. Not that I know what anybody would do at this time at night, but we have our next speaker, and we're going to say this will go. We'll have about a 60-minute session, 55 to 60-minute session. This one, the next person to speak is Mike McGuire. So, Mike, if you can come forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Mike McGuire, 1746 Northwest Francis here in McMinnville. Recently retired, one of your firefighter medics. I want to speak neither for or against, but I'm 65 years old, and except for the last 5 years when I was fortunate enough to move my entire clan to McMinnville, I lived in Gresham, born and raised there. And I had the Springwater Trail. I actually was part of the concept of it from beginning to end, or that encompassed our area. And I'm not naive enough to even begin to compare Gresham, Milwaukee, and Portland with McMinnville, Carlton, Yamhill, and Gaston. It is apples and oranges. But I watched this at one time was the most pristine trail in Oregon. It went right through downtown Gresham, through our main city park, connected right next to the Little League ball field. I remember taking my son for walks on it. And it is now probably one of the most dangerous places to be in Oregon. Every day you read about murders and robberies and rapes and homeless camps and drug dealers making their deals there. You can walk from the ballpark with a little pail in your hand and in 5 minutes fill it with hypodermic needles. Even our law enforcement out there didn't go there except in mass. But again, please don't make me think that I'm speaking against it. Actually, I think this is a great thing because I saw the Springwater Trail when it was new, and it was spectacular. I guess my main comment is if you build it, they will come. So if you build it, and again, I actually hope we do. I absolutely love living here in McMinnville. But if you do, all the volunteer groups that we had that patrolled it and helped it, the cadets and everybody, as it got more dangerous, they went away. The little volunteer groups that helped police and clean it and pick up trash and things like that, over the years, they went away. Now, no one in their right mind will walk down Springwater Trail in Gresham. So if we build this, please, from someone who has lived their entire life mostly right next to one, put the funding in that cannot be removed by the next person elected to keep it policed. 30
seconds.
Thank you. To keep it policed, to keep it clean, to keep it safe, because this is an opportunity to build another Springwater Trail that was absolutely, like I said, the show mark for the entire state. And we can do that out here. And we just need to make sure we have the funds in place to do it and keep it right.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for attending tonight. Our next person who'd like to provide oral comment is Ed Friedenberg. So, Ed, if you want to come forward, please.
Yeah, my name is Ed Friedenberg, 9875 Meadow Loop in Newberg, Oregon. And compared to some of probably most of the other speakers, I'm a relative newcomer to this area. I retired in 2010 in Eastern Washington, and we moved to Newberg to be close to our grandkids. And last year, to enhance my opportunities for recreation, etc., I bought a trail bike. And so I was looking for places to ride the trail bike, and that's when I discovered the Banks to Vernonia Trail. And 2 or 3 of the other speakers have talked about the Banks to Vernonia Trail. I have been on it solo several times, ridden on it with my grandson, ridden on it with my son-in-law, and it's just a fantastic scenic and recreational experience. I know one of the other speakers said, well, or maybe a couple of the speakers have said that well, maybe you're comparing apples and oranges. Maybe it's not like the same terrain you find between Yamhill and Carlton and Gaston. And I don't want to address that because I don't really know. I did go online to find out a little bit about the history of the Banks to Vernonia Trail. What I found was, and probably most of you already know this, but the railroad was abandoned in, as I recall, 1973. It was acquired by the State Department of Transportation in 74, turned it over to the Oregon Parks Department in, as I recall, 1990 or something like that. Construction started in 91 and actually completed in 2010, same year we moved down here. The last facility was built in 2010. So the points that are that, you know, it's a long duration project. It takes commitment and dedication and perseverance to get it done. And what I take away from that is I just appreciate the people that were involved early on, that had the vision and had the perseverance and the dedication to make something like that happen. And it took a long time to happen, and I was a beneficiary of that. So looking out the Yamhelas, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Westsider Trail, I think the lesson is
about 30 seconds.
This is going to be a long-term project too, and I'm sure that in the future, people here that are 50 and under and their kids are going to appreciate the vision and the perseverance and the dedication of people that make this happen too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next person that we'll call forward to provide their comments is Matt Huey. So Matt, are you here?
Hello. I'm Matt Howie. I'm on 2643 Pinot Noir Drive in McMinnville. I just want to tell the story of Vernonia. I'm a cyclist and I'm a computer programmer in the day, and I ride bikes to get some exercise. In the early 2000s, I went to a bike race in Vernonia. It was over at about noon. It was on some private land, and I remember going into town to get something to eat, and there was like one hippie cafe that had wraps or something, and there was no choices. And I ended up driving out of town and got something, I think, like in Hillsborough or something on the way home. And then, I heard about this Vernonia Banks Trail a lot. I do some road riding now. And so I just, like a random Tuesday a couple years ago, I just dropped everything and said, I have a day off. I'm going to just go do this. So I took off, like 10 a.m. I started riding, and it's 20 miles, and it's kind of uphill. It's kind of hard. Got to Vernonia about noon, and the place was like, I would say Vernonia in the early 2000s reminded me of Willamina. It was just like pretty quiet, pretty small, kind of depressed town. And Vernonia in 2012 or 13 at noon on a Tuesday randomly in the summer was like Saturday night, 3rd Street, McMinnville. I couldn't get into any restaurants because they're so full. I had to eat a hot dog from a hot dog cart, and I had to wait for construction workers to get their hot dogs before me. And I'm trying to imagine what it would take to get like a hot dog cart to show up in Willamina with a line. Like the amount, it was just absolute transformation. A friend, another thing I want to mention is a friend at Linfield that teaches in the athletics program. Does some economic studies, and we've done bike races, and we've gone out to, 1,000 people show up in Echo, Oregon, which is just way out by Hermiston, way out in the middle of nowhere. You spend the weekend there, and he did an economic impact study, and 1 weekend of racing brought in, I think, $180,000 to that little town of like 500 people. Like we just doubled the population, and we're all spread out, and So I've just seen the transformation with my own eyes. What happened at Banks and Vernonia. I'd love to have some safe off-highway places to take my family and ride a bike, and thank you very much. I'd like to see this happen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker who would like to provide or actually ask a question, and I'll have him come forward now, is Chris Madsen. So Chris, if you want to come forward, please. And again, Chris, go ahead and enter your, state your name and your address for the record, please.
Chris Matson. I live in Cove Orchard in Yamhill. Actually, I have a couple questions. What will this trail cost? Not down to the penny, but after, 5, 6, 7 years of planning, you should have some idea. And then also, what about an indemnity fund for the people that live along the trail for lawsuits and things like that?
Okay, let me see, who wants to answer the first part about the trail costs? Do you want Brett or Jane, or who would like, Ken? Who would like to answer that one to start with? Or Laura? Okay.
So the project will be developed in phases, and one of the next grants that we're actually going to try to pursue is a master plan. And I know this is a question that comes up often, how much it's going to cost at every step, and I appreciate not down to the penny because that's really hard. But so far, I gave you the totals earlier about how much we've spent and done so far. However, it's a really difficult question to answer because it will unfold over time in phases. Now, we will pursue grants for this project, which come in all different shapes and sizes. Some require financial match from the county, some do not. And so that's sort of depends. Some money, for example, the grant that we got from Connect Oregon 6, we used previous grants and previous expenditures as match for that grant. So that grant is actually not creating any new expenditures for the county up front to require a match. So there's sort of two sides to that coin. So there's amount that we will bring in to fund the project, and there's the amount that we will be paying from the county funds that the commissioners decide to pay for it. So I don't have an answer to that question for you. Someone else may jump in. However, we are working towards having an answer to that question, and that will come through the form of a master plan, which will help to identify the key components that we'll need, and as well as the potential cost range associated with those projects. So
after 5, 10 years, you don't even have an estimate?
So we don't own the railroad yet, so it's been very difficult. We don't own the corridor yet, so it's
So you don't hypothetically, if you purchase it, you don't go, it will cost this much to build it?
Well, the commissioners there is a consensus of the board that the acquisition of the corridor has value in and of itself, owning the property. And so because it comes in phases, it costs money to find out what the master plan will be and how to pursue that. So that's why we use a tool of a grant to help cover the cost of doing the research. How much will this cost? What will it look like? What will the impacts be? So I know that's not exactly what you want to hear, and I'm sorry that's not making it clear, but we just simply don't have that yet. However, what we do have is, for example, the cost of the engineering and the design of the bridges. For example, right now we have some estimated costs for that, and as we get into that grant, we'll be very, very public with what those expenditures will be and that project budget. So, and as we do the master planning project, that is absolutely one of our goals, is to nail down a cost estimate that understandably would change over time, but could at least be an answer to that question. So
Quick answer is no.
So to be continued would be my answer. So.
Hey, Brett, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think Jane answered that really well, in that she laid out that this is a process, and in order to try to figure out what it's going to cost, you have to have a plan. You need to know what features are going to be out there along the trail, how many trailheads, what the size is going to be. So it's imperative that we do a master plan, and we're working on that so we can have a roadmap for the future and see what it's going to cost. It's important to the county as well to know what it's going to cost.
So in your conceptual plan, what does that cost?
The conceptual plan didn't touch on the cost value. That was more of, landscape and architecture design. It was really to paint a picture, to put on paper sort of the nebulous idea of what we were talking about, to paint a picture of it. So master plan will get into that nitty gritty cost details, working with planners, professional companies that do this, across the nation.
Jane, I think what maybe Mr. Mattson was getting at, or what Chris was getting at, is we're through the conceptual plan now. Okay, we're moving on. The grants that are available for and the outlay of the cost, whether through the grants or through the county itself, what was the cost roughly to do the conceptual plan, if I understand, if that's what you're getting at?
Based on your conceptual plan, what will the 8 miles, 9 miles, 17 miles, whatever your target is this week, for building a trail?
Let me give you a little example, then I'll turn it over to the rest of the staff. Being the previous mayor of McMinnville, as you might remember, 2 years ago, the citizens of McMinnville passed a $34 million bond levy to do a lot of street work in McMinnville. Well, before construction even started, or before that was done, several things had to happen. There were not just the hearings between the citizens of McMinnville, but there had to be design concepts. There had to be preliminary engineering. There had to be bidding. So we had that same question coming up in our before we even got to the point where we could say, okay, we're going to go ask the voters for $34 million to do these. A lot of money, probably over $300,000 was expended just to determine what it was going to cost to do the trail. So to say now through the final plans, like Jane was talking about, until you to a point where you can actually send out bids for construction costs, engineering costs, you don't know. And until the county owns the property, I think the commissioners are told that until the county owns the property, when we get to the engineering, that would cost me, or the construction, we're not going to do anything until we own the property. So until we own the property, we can't really, in all honesty, we can't say what it'll cost because we don't own the property to know.
What do similar bike trails cost per mile?
Brett, can you answer that one?
Actually, when you look at, there's a Folsom Trail in California, and you're talking about paving costs, from the very beginning, they're just so different that it's really difficult to give you a cost figure. Bankster Vernonia has some similarities. I'm not exactly sure what their cost was, but I think what the county needs to do is have a business plan moving forward with this project. But we can't have a business plan, like Jane said, until we own it, until we get to a point where we can actually have a real master plan that will lay out the details. And we don't want to give a false number. We want to have a good hard number on what it would cost us, so that way we can work towards funding it. So it's difficult to give you a number.
I think it's fair to I think it's fair to say, Chris, after just consulting, and I think staff will probably agree with this. Hopefully they won't shoot me, but I think we don't have that answer now, but we could try to look at similar type trails that have been built over the last 10 years, of course, knowing the economy and everything, and we'll be more than glad to post information on the trail website of an average, but whether it's by the mile, whether it's by the corridor, the type, how many, like bridges, that kind of thing, and we'll make sure that we can get that information out there so it's viewable.
Okay, what about an indemnity fund for the?
I'm going to turn that over to our legal counsel, probably can talk about indemnity for county property.
Yeah, if you're talking about indemnification or some sort of insurance protection for property owners along the trail, I think that's an interesting idea. We can certainly have discussions about, forming some sort of legal defense fund. Maybe we, have conversations with property owners, with friends of the trail, see if there's any appetite for setting something like that up. I'm not really sure how the county would play a role in that, but we can certainly have conversations about that. It's an interesting idea and certainly something I think we can follow up on and continue to discuss.
California's done that on their trail projects with the Farm Bureau to try to help alleviate some of the issues of, trespassing, theft, vandalism. I know you guys say that won't happen here, but there's still a chance it might, so.
Hey, that's what insurance and that's what attorneys are always worried about, right? Is the risk, and you hope for the best and you plan for the worst, and this is a perfect example of an opportunity to explore something like that. I would certainly appreciate any information you've got about what you've learned about similar programs in other places. We could do some research ourselves and continue to certainly have that discussion. I think it's, I don't know how others feel, but I certainly think it's something that's worth exploring.
Yeah, I really do, Chris, appreciate those kind of questions because I'm a firm believer, and I think I've told you and others that I'm a firm believer that if two parties with really differing opinions can come together and be frank and ask those kind of questions, that those kind of questions are answerable. It's just have to knowing what those questions are so we know how to answer those questions and then answer them that provides a factual answer to the citizens. So,
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The next one we'll take comments from is Chad Olson. So Chad, come on forward, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Sterrett and Primovich. So my name's Chad Olson, City Manager for the City of Carlton, and I'm here in my official capacity to testify in support of the trail project. And the address is 191 East Main Street, Carlton, Oregon, and also I'm a resident of McMinnville. And the other thing I want to make sure I say just up front is I'm also a member of the friend of Yamhelas Trail, the Westsider group, the 501c3 nonprofit. So trail projects provide a wide variety of benefits in a local, county, regional, and statewide basis. Benefits include, and you've heard them all tonight covered in different aspects: public safety, active recreation, economic development, tourism, and so on. As a public official over the years, and I've been in the business for about 30 years, I have firsthand experience with the benefits of multimodal transportation development strategies. And multimodal has been defined, so I won't go into that. Over the years, I also have firsthand experience in the development and benefits of bicycle and pedestrian projects. So to be brief, my comments are going to focus on the safety benefits that are provided by developing a trail project as a bike and pedestrian alternative to Highway 47. So while I recognize that there's multiple benefits of the trail, I believe that the life safety benefits provided by this specific transportation alternative to Highway 47 is crucial to the health, safety, and welfare of all of our communities. From McMinnville to Gaston, 47 is an extremely hazardous route given its heavy congestion with passenger and commercial truck traffic. While there are many recreational walkers and bikers on the highway, there's also many members of our communities that are what's considered transportation disadvantaged, and they don't have a vehicle to use, and for any other number of reasons, they're required to walk or use a bike to get around between the different communities. Route alternatives to highways promote transportation safety and save lives. I don't mean to be dramatic in that statement, but as it was stated before, that's a simple fact.
About 30 seconds, Chad.
In August 2014, a Carlton member of the community was killed riding his bike from McMinnville and was struck by a van. So there's obvious safety issues, and separating those modes of traffic is really critical. The other thing I want to hit real quick is that federal and state agencies have grant programs to pay for these type of projects. They typically are very small in the share. And I think it is actually a disservice to our communities to not take advantage of those funding opportunities.
Okay, I hate
Thank
to cut
you.
you off, Chad, but I have cut you off. The next one we have coming before us is that would like to provide oral comments is Alice Patridge. Do I have that right, Patridge? So Alice, if you'd like to come forward and again state your name and your address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Alice Patridge. I live at 687 North Coolidge, and I'm one of those people that has skin in the game. I've recently retired, was widowed last year in the middle of a process for looking for a home that we could actually afford and outside the city limits. Every single house that was in a price range that was affordable was either on a busy street, back to a busy street, a flag lot, or in terrible condition, or had a freeway access. Every one of those properties were in our price range because they were devalued because of those situations. In my opinion, this is not an asset to my property values. And if this moves ahead, you know, I did not move an hour away from the town that I go to church in and I have my business affiliations with to have the public literally in my backyard. Some of the concerns I have is you showed the breakaway of the width of with the bed, the road bed. My house is already in a situation where the drainage is not proper and it literally floods my entire backyard to where I can't use it. I've had contractors come out and they said it's not my property, it's the poor drainage that is being funneled into the entire over 100 feet of frontage. That's making my backyard totally unusable and totally flooded underneath my house. The drainage system and everything is having to be modified, and it's still not clear that that's going to maintain that. I'm all for good transportation and safety and all that kind of stuff, but isn't there room for the individuals? I mean, our government originally was created to protect the citizens from big business. It appears that government now has become big business. And that's really sad. And when I looked at the county map and I first found out about this, because it wasn't disclosed to me that I was buying property on a public potential throughway, I looked on the county maps and I saw this property and I thought, I think that's railroad. Well, you look on your current county maps, Yamhelas maps, that's not a continuous piece of property. It's not all owned by railroad. What contingencies are being made and is there any agreement with these private landowners that, oh, sure, go ahead, bifurcate my property? You know, what are the funds set aside for that? And I'm in agreement.
About 30 seconds, okay. Alice.
I'm in agreement with the fact that I don't want the liability of the public literally at my backyard. We got fire dangers, you know, the blackberry bushes, those things get dry, and you're going to put a pavement situation. We all just went through a horrible wet winter. You're going to cover this land that absorbs the water with something more that prohibits that. There's going to be greater flooding. There's a lot of lowland area here.
Okay, we're getting towards the end outs, but I want to address a couple things. I think you had a question in there.
Yes.
That I'll address is number one, I'm going to have our parks manager write down the issue with the drainage. So as engineering takes place, that can be addressed. But I'd like, Jane, I'd like our projects and grants manager I had the same question regarding the contiguousness of the trail, so I will let Jane address that.
Thanks for your questions, Alice. I appreciate it. So the corridor is mostly intact, but you're correct. There are a few private property owners.
Quite large ones.
There are 4 specifically. 2 of them are donating easements to the project, so they're in complete support and are indeed donating their land once the county acquires it for this purpose. One of them purchased the property with the easement written into their deed. So they had, we had a period of time in which we could acquire that. The railroad reserved that for us. They worked with that property owner, made them fully aware. We actually rerouted the center line of the corridor to go to the west side of their property to further accommodate their business activities there. So that's what the railroad did to do that. And then there is one private property over to the north that owns the corridor outright. It is a small section, and he is not in support of the trail. However, we have worked with the adjacent landowner to his property, which is U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to actually route the trail through their land, which serves their purpose, and to not infringe upon that property owner's property. So we are only acquiring property that is being sold by Union Pacific Railroad.
One of the things that the sheriff touched on and has been mentioned several times tonight is this appears to be more of a seasonal, favoring the summertime. If we're using this to facilitate from Yamhill to Carlton for the schools, we're going to have a lot of children on that in time frames that it's not going to be well maintained. Is that really, it appears to me to be an increasing safety issue for the children.
You know, what I'll ask you to do, since we have did answer those two questions, Alice, is as part of this process, what I would encourage you to do is you can get another card from Michaeli over there, and those type of questions, put your name and address and email if you want to respond to them, and any additional questions you have, write on your form, and then they will go become part of this meeting so we can make sure we can get the answers.
Do that tonight?
Yes, you can do that tonight, or any time you can contact any one of the three commissioners and email us or whatever. We'll make sure it gets in the right place.
Thank you.
Okay, unfortunately, the city says the lights start getting turned off at 10 o'clock, darn lights and stuff like that. So we're running short. So what I'll do is, number one, we still have quite a few, and I want to make sure we can get everybody in. And if we have to stay an extra 5 minutes, hopefully the lights won't go off till then. We can do that. But a couple things I'll also ask is that we're not going to cut anybody less than their 3 minutes. They're entitled to their 3 minutes. But I just noticed that, like the next one, Cheryl Nangaroni stated that if there wasn't time to provide oral comments, that she would provide written comments, which she has. So if you're able to provide written comments so somebody else can use that 3 minutes, I would appreciate it. But again, we're going to try not to cut anybody off. But when the lights go off, the equipment goes off, there's not a lot we can do about it. So. The next one we have is on the list is Brian Schmidt. So Brian, he'd like to go ahead and give some oral comments, so come on forward. And again, Brian, go ahead and state your name and sign in, please.
Hello, Chairman Olson, and thank you very much for organizing this today. I want to say hi to Mrs. Crockett over there. She was an awesome band teacher a long time ago. She taught me how to play trumpet. Yeah, okay. So I'm here today to talk about, read a letter from the Yamhill County Farm Bureau. The president has this letter, then I've submitted it to the public record, so you can read that too, or have lots of copies. So it says, good evening, commissioners and staff. Thank you for providing this forum. Let's see, on September 6th, an Oregon Farm Bureau attorney met with Yamhill County planners and its legal counsel to discuss the trail, and present were Mr. Todd Sallow and planner Ken Friday, and a few other staff members who are here tonight. Laura Toshbolt, she was here there too. Oh, there she is, hi. Okay, so on that meeting, that was 9 months ago, Mr. Sadlow and Mr. Friday indicated that there is no farm impact study, and for all they knew, there wasn't going to be one. And we kept asking why. And he said over and over and over again, we don't have any plans for bike path. We don't have any plans for bike path. And he used exact quote. He said, this is only hypothetically bike path. And then I think it was Mr. Friday asks, heck, we might even put on solar panels. We might let people graze. Heck, we don't know. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But we were a little bit perturbed because this contradicted the 6 previous meetings in which many of you, the staff up here, Mr. Primazich, Mr. Springer, and Mr. Mercer over there, we're talking about all these grants they were getting to pay for all this and how wonderful this bike path is going to be. So obviously that didn't jive at all. So we like to, I'll read more from his letter here. He says, we would like to point out that Benton County tried a similar endeavor but could not fulfill the farm mitigation requirements And they had to give their ODOT grants back. So here we are spending millions of dollars of ODOT grant money, and Mercer basically answered the question by saying that it's going to be paid for with grant money. That's the only answer she gave. She didn't answer the question. And I'm a math teacher, and usually we have a lower limit and an upper limit. What is it, 1 to 10 million? I mean, come on, put out a number. So I'm going to read more from his letter because I'm adding my own ad lib to this too. But if a bike path is being considered, the law requires the ORS 215-296 process to be complete, okay? But you're already jumping the gun and going forward. Please indicate if and when this process, farm impact study, will occur. From the Oregon Farm Bureau, Yamhill County Farm Bureau, they say, we look forward to working with the county to complete this process as required. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Sincerely, Jerry Mann, Yamhill County Farm Bureau President. So I would like to ask, I was at the MWAC board meeting and where they gave the
About 30 seconds, Brian, so.
Thank you. They gave the second grant, and Mr. Wright, Ken Wright back there, and Mr. Primozic are both on that board. And we said, hey, we're against this, and there were about 7 people there, and they said, we never heard anybody contest this. We thought we were all for it. And I talked to LCDC there, and they said, what's the big deal? Ken Friday and I already had a conversation. There's going to be a farm back state. So they don't understand what all this hubbub is about. So, Mr. Olson, if you have time tonight, why was I told that this is about a commuter line to Washington County, a light rail, and not about a bike path?
Okay, I will just, since I'm the new commissioner in the Kennedy Block, and I'm the one that convened this meeting, I will tell you what I know, and this is just me personally, I don't want to speak for either one of the other commissioners, is I want to be perfectly clear so everybody understands tonight, and I wasn't on the commission last year, I don't know, but you can tell by looking at the grants, yes, this is a multimodal corridor, but the primary immediate function of this corridor is for a trail, and I'm going on record and I'm saying that myself. In the future, it's a 60-foot wide right-of-way. It can be used for everything, but there's no doubt, even in my mind as a commissioner, that the initial use of that was designed or is for a trail. It was put in the transportation plan that way. But the second issue I'd like to address, and just to let you know, Brian, and I'll address this question myself, is that with the change of the commissioners, that 2 of the commissioners, even though there's a legal litigation whether we do have to follow the farm impact study or we don't have to follow the farm impact study, and I'm not going to get into legality whether it's in the comprehensive plan, not in the comprehensive plan, but 2 of the commissioners have gone on record in a meeting saying it is our desire, whether it's required or not, that the county perform a farm use analysis. And I think Commissioner Sterrett will agree with that we have said that we do want, once the property's acquired, before we move too much forward, we do want to do a farm impact analysis.
And if it fails, then you have to give the grant money back. So I just wondered
you're the only one I talked to DLCD, I've talked to a lot of other people, I've talked to our legal counsel. That's not the intention, but I don't want to get into the legalities because Benton County was definitely a different situation. And if you read about Benton County, they were building theirs along the highway right-of-way. It was strict beyond the highway right-of-way, and they were going to take property that was already in the right-of-way. So, and I just talked to 2 Benton County commissioners last week about that to prepare for this meeting. So it is a little bit different, but I want to ensure you, Brian, and any of the other opponents here, that 2 commissioners have gone on record saying the desire is to do a farm impact analysis. So. Okay, the next one we have in front of us is next one we have that'd like to provide oral testimony is Galen McBee. So Galen, come on up. Not that you know anything about parks or anything like that, but come on up.
My name is Galen McBee, and I live at 625 Northeast 11th Street, McMinnville. And I would like to go on record as being for the trail. It's late, and I know that others want to speak. Very quickly, our bicycle group here in McMinnville, I lead 2 of them. I try to lead them. I usually lose control very quickly. But we do ride the Banks Vernonia Trail. and we annually go up there and ride. And I have watched that development of that trail from the onset in the early 70s. And I think if you go back and look and talk to the state and look at some of their record, you'll find all of the turmoil that the adjacent property owners, the agony that they went through with those neighbors was done in that time. And I think anyone riding that trail will see that what a great asset it is for the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Galen. The next one who would like to provide comments, and I hope I have his last name right. It's Mark Giebler. Is that correct? Mark, it looks like a G. Okay, Mark Gabler. Okay, so he did not leave room, but we'll put his card aside to make sure he gets it. The next one is Suzanne Stinnett. So Suzanne, if you'd like to come forward. And it says you on oral and a question, so.
Okay. My name is Suzanne Stinnett, and I live at...
Can you pull a little bit closer to you, Suzanne, so we can hear you?
My name is Suzanne Stinnett, and I live at 6300 Highway 47. The trail that you guys are proposing to do is going directly through my backyard. I have a lot of timber. I have a lot of tall grass. What my concern is when they did have the tracks behind my house 27-something years ago, it was a problem. There were boxcars in there that were occupied by vagrant people. As soon as they took those boxcars out and the tracks out, the vagrant people seemed to have left. Plus all the blackberries and everything kind of helped that problem. They don't want to go back there anymore. But seeing as I'm going to be so close to Gun Club Road, I am close to Mule Lake, that's Gun Club Road where they're going to do a thing, the end of it. Quarter mile past that on, right there. Very close. My question is I know the Sheriff's Department is very, very fast at responding. There's been many complaints at Mule Lake Ranch where the gentleman that had bought Mule Lake Ranch, the cabin down on the lakeside, they have had many, many people down there with heroin use, drug use, vandalism. They've really thrashed the place. I have children that have been running down the Highway 47, and yes, they are runaways. What my concern is if there's still runaways going from Carlton towards McMinnville, nobody's going to know that they're even there at all on that trail. They're going to have places to hide. Also, the vagrants are going to have places to hide. It's not going to be a real safe place because it is out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't really think that that's a really good answer. Yes, I do want to have a good, safe place for the children to go and people to bike and all that kind of stuff. Okay, but there is Old McMinnville Highway, which runs right directly from Picola to Gun Club Road. And it is a graveled road. Why can't they use that? It's open. It's not hiding anybody. You can't hide out back there. The sheriffs will be able to respond in a very timely manner. It's like they respond fairly quick to my address, but I'm right there on the Highway 47. What are they going to do when they have to go back by horseback or bicycle? That concerns me. There's going to be people camping back there.
About 30 seconds, then we'll get to your question.
There is a homeless problem. And back then, 27 years ago, it wasn't as bad, but it is getting 10 times worse.
Okay.
So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, and I noticed you also you'd like to ask a question, so you can go ahead and go with your
That's
question.
my question.
That was your question?
How are they going to patrol that area for safety?
I think the sheriff addressed that once a little bit earlier, but I'll let him address it again.
The bicycle and the horses, yes, I can understand that. And I have seen the sheriff department respond directly on Highway 47. But you're not going to be able to get back to those other forestry spots.
So I don't know if you've had a chance to review the 50-some page concept plan that
not yet.
I had gone through it a little bit because that was one of the questions that a lot of this are having is how are we going to get back there? How easy it is. It's parallel to Highway 47, which is very easy for us to get to. There's a lot of crossroads, but how are we going to get down there? And looking through this plan, Part of the master plan process is to make sure that at each intersecting point, there's some sort of pull out. There's barriers that we have the ability to pull out. And from looking at the plan and the concept, it's going to have 10 feet worth of pavement, and our patrol cars can drive right down the middle of 10 feet worth of pavement. So if we had to get to any part of that trail, we'll drive onto the trail and we'll drive the entire route till we need to get to where we need to get to. So it's, until I think the county gets much farther down the road, I think it's very conceptual on what actual safety impacts you're going to have in the community. Because I could point out 50 different locations in our county right now that have the exact same safety impact, that concerns that are probably more of a concern than a trail like this running through. We tend to see less of the vagrants and the homeless and the hanging out on these big, wide open tracks where a lot of people like to travel through. City of McMinnville, for example, the stretch between Baker Creek and Wallace there's a nice little stretch that runs right through a whole bunch of neighborhoods. There are a ton of people that are on that on a regular basis, and the city of McMinnville will tell you that's not the areas that they're concerned about. The areas which they're concerned about are those that are made by the people who are wanting to travel through different parts of the woods, because they want to be hidden. They don't want to be seen. They want to be away from people. And from looking at this plan, from the
And that means my
concept-
backyard.
well,
That
from
means
this
my
concept-
backyard, which is forested.
Correct.
Yeah, they're going to camp in my backyard, which is going to cause a fire problem. Are these roads going to be big enough for a fire truck that start in my backyard? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, I think since we're going short, Suzanne, what I'd encourage you to do is, and maybe I can encourage the sheriff to, we have your card here, that Sheriff Tim, if you could maybe contact her and talk a little bit more about the security, we'll have the sheriff contact you personally and talk about the security.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one, I'm one ahead of myself. I don't want to forget this gentleman and this friend, a friend of mine, from South, Tom Hammer. Tom, come on forward.
Tom Hammer, 23701 Wallace Road, Wheatland, Oregon. A lot of this has been covered, so I'm going to hit. Your planning's been incomplete, commissioners. You don't have an economic advisor. You don't have a contractor to tell you how your costs are escalating. You don't have a representative from farms, and you don't have a taxpayer advocate. So what we're seeing here is a real lopsided deal. And also, we're told to testify tonight, but it's a done deal, too. I think that's pretty poor. I want to say something about farmers. In Yamhill County, agriculture is our number one industry. The most employees of any industry are farm workers. And for each person who works on a farm, there's 7 other jobs that are supported by that. That's the backbone of your county. So I would think if there was any business thought to this, that you'd be looking out for what's good for the farms as businesses. You've heard tonight from some farmers. I think they were hobby farmers. The real ones are out there working until the sun goes down. They couldn't be here. But you haven't even tried to listen to them. I think you've even ducked them. Farmers, what's their life like? They aren't guaranteed. They don't have guaranteed salaries. They don't have guaranteed health care. They don't have guaranteed pensions. They just take their chances with the free market every day. They're managing financial. They're managing financing. They're subject to regulations, changes in the weather, all of those things, and I don't think that's being respected. This is going to harm farms. People that have said it won't. Like I said, they might have been hobby farmers, but I'm talking hands-on farmers. And if commissioners don't look after farmers, who will? I mean, the people in the urban growth boundary have mayors and city councils, but who cares about the farmers? And if I were a commissioner, I'd say, well, most of the votes are in the city, so I want to get reelected. That's who I'm going to listen to. You don't get something for nothing. And this business of bicycling, I want to say, is fun. I enjoyed it as a kid, and I think everybody should grow
About
up with a
30
bike.
seconds, Tom.
Okay. The transportation package recognizes that this share the road stuff also includes share the cost now. And so part of the transportation package, when you buy a sport bike, you'll pay a fee. And so it's finally being recognized by our legislature, which are not exactly hard-nosed conservatives.
Okay, you need to go ahead and wrap up. Tom, we'll give you just a
I'm
couple
pretty well
seconds to
wrapped
wrap
up,
up.
Commissioner. I want to say I'm disappointed that you mentioned it be an agricultural analysis instead of an official binding agricultural impact study. Anything less than that is, again, lip service to the farmers.
I was just referring to farm impact study, and I probably should have used a study, but it's how the Oregon Revised Statutes calls it farm use. So whatever it calls it, that's what I meant.
Okay. I just thought of one more thing for the legal department.
Okay, go ahead.
All state highways and that interact with pedestrian bicycles, and Commissioner Primazich and I heard this last Friday, are having to comply with new ADA stuff based on some lawsuits, and that's not factored into your plans.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. The next one that I'd like to call forward to speak, it looks like Diane Jensen. Is there Diane Jensen here? Okay. Thank you very much. The next one we have is Brian Koch. So, Brian, are you still here? And Brian said, he was going to provide written, and so we'll go ahead and go past him. The next one we have is Karen Brock, who wanted to give testimony. Karen, come on forward.
I'm Karen Brock. I live in Yamhill, and my husband and I have a farm there, and we also own a piece of property in the city of Carlton that is adjacent to the proposed trail. I will not read my dissertation because there have been so many awesome points made. I'd like to say that I identify with some of the things that Tom said right before me. I think that the farmers we need to embrace them and make them feel like this is going to be okay for them too. The meeting that I was at last week, where the presentation from the person who donated their time to put the plan together, to me, the whole plan was very sensitive to the needs all along the trail. So Alice was here. She has a problem with the draining. I think we need to embrace the people that are not happy also. My husband and I are very happy, and I would like to just say one thing about our experience on trails, which are vast, and that is I'm very much looking forward to the possibility that the abandoned strip behind our property is going to be integrated in a better way into the community. It's dead space in the city, doesn't look that nice, and so I would be very welcome, very eager for something to be done with that. I can't do anything with it. It's not mine. I'm not supposed to be on it. I would also like to just say thank you very much for this very informative evening and being brave enough to do your jobs and be here and listen to all this. I would like to say to Commissioner Sterrett, I'm hoping you might hear some things here tonight about safety and health that you haven't considered before. We have an opportunity in this community to do something really, really special and to take a stand for the overall well-being of our county. I do not think that the goals of the farming community
about 30
and
seconds.
And the pro-trail people have to be at odds. Mr. Primovich, thank you for your support. Commissioner Olson, I'm feeling very heartened about you in regards to this trail. As a voter, I recall that you were pro-trail at the time when you were running for office, so congratulations on your win, and I'm hoping to see great integrity from you as far as leading this. So, thank you.
Okay, the next one that'd like to speak, and excuse me, I'm having trouble reading the last name, but I think I can do the first name, Sabra? Sabra, and how do you pronounce your last name, Sabra? Matos. So go ahead and sign in and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Sabra Mateau. I live at 520 East Madison in Carlton, and everyone said everything I want to say, so I'm done.
Okay.
I'm for the trail.
Okay, thank you.
Strongly support it and everything that's been said.
Okay, thank you, Sabra. Okay, the next one who would like to provide some comments, some oral comments, is Eric Witherspoon. So, Doctor, are you still here? Yeah, come on right on up.
I'm Eric Witherspoon. I live at 23355 Mount Richmond Road outside of Yamhill, but I have worked and built businesses for 37 years at 310 South Pine Street and 230 South Pine Street in Carlton. So I have a dog in this fight, literally, because it's the Carlton Vet Hospital that goes right up next to the trail, and I think it's a magnificent thing. Now, I want to try something different. I just want to ask, if you'll indulge me, could I see the hands raised of anybody here who has property or who lives right next to the trail? How many of you have lived there for 20 or worked 25 or 30 years? 16. Okay. The reason I ask that is we're talking about an abandoned railroad. And for the first 10 years that I had my business there in Carlton, I would come to work and there'd be a line of boxcars, empty, full, some of them with flatbeds with steel going to the steel mill for miles. And they broke those trains so people could cross the roads at the road going to the grade school and the next road down on Highway 47 and at Gun Club Road. And if I'm wrong, point it out to me, but they didn't break it on your farms. They didn't. I mean, the train went right across there. So I'm going to say what's bad for farming were some of those trains. And when they pulled those trains out, it was bad for business too. When they pulled those trains out, they left a big mess behind. So when talking about what's good for farming, we have to remember that that was a railroad there that divided a lot of those fields, that kept people right through the middle of Carlton, right on the outside of Yamhill, right through Cove Orchard. And it was great when they pulled it out, and now we have this long stretch that can be used again. And I just want people to remember that that's what it used to be, and it's an opportunity to turn it into something positive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we have about 4 more comment cards, so I'm going to go through these. It appears we have, they are all proponents. Is that correct, Laura? And one does not? Okay. No, they're all proponents. And let me read the names and see if anybody still needs to comment, because I do not show any from the opponents. I have and let me. One from me. What's your name?
James Crawford.
Well, we'll make sure we get to you if we find it.
It's here.
No. She's looking it up right now. I'm just going by the list I have in front of me, so hold on, James. But since you did have one and you wanted to provide oral comment also, okay, why don't you come forward and state your name and everything for the record so we make sure we can get you on record.
Hello, my name is James Crawford, 24955 Northwest Oak Hill Road, Yamhill, Oregon. I'd like to start out by saying that my written comments, which are far too verbose to be read within the time allotted, are certainly validated by what happened here tonight, where somebody took the liberty of separating the pro comments from the opposed comments and letting the people who were for the trail go first,
they've had the best opportunity to be heard as a result. I would like to ask some questions about the legalities of the trail. It is my understanding that you bought a railroad right-of-way or are buying a railroad right-of-way. In almost all cases, unless they were an original land grant railroad, railroad right-of-ways are not real property. They are an easement across somebody else's property. And depending on the specific legal language in the easement agreement, those easements are specifically for operation and construction of a railroad, no other purpose. And as a result, you can't just arbitrarily buy a railroad easement and say, what the heck, I'm going to make a trail out of it, make a freeway out of it, put in a bar and grill or whatever you want. And I would suggest that you go talk to the city of Banks that did a UGB expansion about 5-10 years ago. And they took in land that was literally on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. And it was an obvious transportation nightmare. And they predicated this silly decision on one of their commissioners on the Planning Commission who had no business being on the Planning Commission because he had a conflict of interest. He was a farmer that owned some land on the wrong side of the tracks, and he had an easement to bring his farm equipment through the lumber yard and across 2 railroads, and he went to the city and said, hey, you can use my easement to put a road across the railroad tracks. Therefore, you can bring my land into the urban growth boundary and I can get rich.
Okay, and that one, so we can keep, I know you have other comments, but that one.
But once the railroads and the lumber company became aware of what was going on, they went to the city and said, hey, that easement is for a specific use, for a farmer to bring his equipment back and forth to farm his field. You cannot turn that easement into a road.
Okay, that's
you have a similar situation with this railroad right-of-way.
No, we don't. And I'm going to allow our legal counsel to explain that because I want to make sure everybody understands what we're purchasing and how it's set up. So I want to get yours in, but I want to make sure legal counsel has a chance to go over land grant railroads. And
so, yeah, you're correct. There are some railroad right-of-ways that were acquired via easement. We're looking into the title history of this entire corridor. Everything we've seen up to this point reflects the fact that the railroad did acquire these parcels through a deed and not via an easement. And we expect all those questions to be answered before we complete the acquisition.
Okay.
So if they do own it, it has been deeded, then it is not a land grant railroad. Okay, you had another question you said, Mr.?
Actually, that enlightens me considerably, and it is unfortunate because this trail is just going to massively impact the affected landowners. And what we've seen here for tonight, they haven't gotten a voice so far, and they're not going to get a voice in the future. And that is sad.
Okay, do you have any other comments? We'll give you about 30 seconds to finish up any comments you might have.
No, I'll pass.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any other opponents? Because I did take the apology for getting the cards wrong. Are there other opponents that would like to speak? Well, the lights could probably go off anytime, but I want to make sure, because we did take a lot of opponents at the beginning, that are there any other opponents who would like to speak or make a short statement? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask the opponents or proponents. We have 4 proponents, and I'm just going to read their name. Haley Cox and Aaron Ramsey, Justin Leahy, Robert Medeiros, and Linda Pierce. So do any of you really want to needs to comment, or could you turn in, I don't want lights out, or could you turn in written comments? Your name will go on file as being a proponent, but I want to make sure if you really need to speak, you can. Okay, and what's your name? Okay.
but if they do, then that'll be okay. My name's Haley Cox, and I grew up on Riverbend Road in McMinnville, and I would, as a middle schooler, ride my bike down Hook and Eye Lane into Amity, where I went to school and all my friends lived and everything. And so 15 years later, I am working on a graduate program to do a conceptual plan for a bike network across the entirety of Yamhill County. And so obviously this trail comes into that system that I'm imagining for the county. And I just would like to read a couple things that in my research, looking at all of the existing plans through Yamhill County, the transportation plan, the goals within these plans, the Parks and Open Space Plan, the Economic Development Plan, and the Transportation System Plan all have goals that are significantly related to such a multimodal bike network. So I think it's really important to take all of those aspects into account. I know we have representation from the Parks Department, and I know that this concept plan has been adopted into the transportation plan, but it seems like it may be valuable to actually create a dedicated task force to bikeway planning countywide. I know also that Chehalem Valley Heritage Trails Plan is a really ambitious trail plan that should be integrated into the planning process for this Yamhelas Westsider Trail to ensure success, accessibility, connectivity, linkages to other communities, and bike programs across the county. And so I would just encourage the county to think about this really, really awesome, unique opportunity in a sort of larger landscape level approach, as the beginning of something, really cool for the entire county. And so I support this, and I support bike planning across the county as a whole. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses.
Okay, thank you very much. I take it I didn't see any of the other hands come up from the other three, so making written comments will be okay. What I'd like to do then is take an opportunity before we go into the really next steps is to give a chance for the other commissioners. First, I'd like to ask Commissioner Sterrett if she'd like to take a minute and a half if you have any comments, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I want to thank you for the impetus to have this meeting. I've tried for a number of years to get consensus on the board that this was something we needed to do, so I appreciate your doing this. I appreciate staff working on all of this. This hasn't been an easy process, but I do want to give you the big picture, and I am concerned about county finances. I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going on at the state, but what's happening at the state can impact us here in this county, whether it comes to social services or some of the things. We need to ask a question: what are the core functions of government? Is it government's function to provide recreation for our citizens, or is it government's function to provide core services that we need to make sure we take care of? Now, we've got a $1.4 billion hole in the state 17-19 general fund budget. We have an additional almost $1 million that the county's going to have to throw at PERS. That's in addition to what we're already paying. That's no new services. We have a loss of $1 million in the Riverbend tipping fee. That's another hit to the county. We're going to have an increase in general fund money going to the sheriff's office for a number of reasons. We have a list of maintenance projects as long as my arm, and we can't get to them all. But the interesting part about this is every one of our capital improvement projects, we know what it's going to cost. We have an estimate for it, and we can put that on the list. We heard 10 minutes tonight of with all due respect to my colleagues, answer the question. The simple question is we're going into a project, a capital project, that that we do not know how much it's going to cost. Nobody even buys a piece of property without at least thinking about what the house is going to cost that they put on it. So to say we don't know, I think does a disservice to the fact that this county has been very fiscally responsible, and I'm concerned about this going forward. We hear about the kids, we hear about safety. I think the best thing we can do for our children is not to leave them in debt. And I'm concerned about what's going to happen when we've got supposedly a trail that we're going to have kids go on. First of all, I think that could be extremely dangerous. But the other thing I want to say is I think one of the things we're going to do is leave our kids with, saddle them with a debt that they cannot possibly dig themselves out of. And just look at some of the finances. We've got 17 parks in this county. We've got vandalism in all of them. Unfortunately, we can't possibly maintain all of them to the degree that we would like to. We have to use inmate labor, and we oftentimes don't even have enough inmate labor. And to say that we're going to use fundraising to maintain this, a bake sale isn't going to cut it. So I ask you to think about what this is going to do, not only to the county budget, but also to the folks who live along the trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sterrett. If I can get you to hold your applause, for the fairness of everybody else, if I can get you to hold your applause, please, I'd like to turn over to Commissioner Chair Primasic for any brief closing comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson, and I, again, thank you for being our moderator tonight. I thank all of you for being here tonight to share your thoughts and your testimony with us. As was pointed out by Commissioner Sterrett, this has been a process for quite some time. She's quite concerned about the state budget, as we all are, because we have no idea where it's going. The monies that are being spent on this are monies that are coming from both federal and state governments that are dedicated to multimodal transportation. So they're not going to go to anything but that. They're in those budgets for that purpose. Now, we can sit back here and say we don't want your money and let it go to another county, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. Personally, I would like to see those dollars come to Yamhill County and benefit the community in a number of ways, and many of them have been articulated here tonight. I've been a strong proponent of this since I became involved in county government because I think it does a number of things. But one of the things that I'm most concerned about is having a healthy county. And healthy county, I know Commissioner Sterrett's very concerned about health and human services, which we all need to be. What we need to do is make all of our citizens far more healthy, and we probably would not have to spend so much on health and human services. So we do need to work together. We need to not say, don't do this because I want this. We need to come together and look at what can we do to benefit the entire community. When I ran for this office, I told people who I am. I'm a Christian conservative, and I've voted that way in everything that's come along. I do what I think is best for Yamhill County. It's not to get votes, as was indicated. It's because I believe what I'm doing is the right thing to do. So I do, again, appreciate everything that's been said here tonight, and I appreciate the staff and the energy and effort that went into making this evening possible. And again, to Mr. Olson, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just have a few closing comments of my own. After I decided not to run for mayor again and I decided to run for county commissioner, I found out one thing that really interested me after I won election, and Commissioner Primasic told me this, which really came as a surprise to me. There's something different about a county commissioner that no other elected office can do in the state of Oregon. We function as a board of commissioners. The three of us make decisions together. But the one thing a county commissioner can do that other elected officials can't do is determine that if they want to convene a meeting on their own. So when I look at this issue, and believe me, before I took office, I've talked to everybody. I talked to a lot of the proponents. I've talked to some of the opponents. And I decided that it would be a good idea, whether it would do any good or not, but to get people together, so hopefully, and put up a website so the information was there, the county wasn't trying to hide anything. Put together meetings such as this, such as a community dialogue outside of the public land use hearing process, to take information and just take comments from people. So when I heard that as a commissioner, I decided, I think I'm going to do that. And I would really like to thank my fellow commissioners when I brought it up to them for supporting the idea as a commissioner that I be able to convene this meeting. I also want to thank the other commissioners and the staff. A lot of work went into, more than you could ever believe or I will ever realize, in modifying the county's website to put all the information about the trail as it's gotten or as we get it out on the website for the citizens to be able to access. Same idea with having some of the plans, conceptual plans, put on USB sticks. I'm very critical that whether anybody agrees with my decision or not, agrees with my standing or not, they will know where I stand, and when I make a vote, they will know why I voted the way I did. So I'd like to thank staff for all the time, and it was not a short period of time to make all that information available to everyone. Especially too, I really want to thank everybody that's sitting in this room and those who have left as a citizen, because believe me, after 33 years in government with the city of McMinnville, I didn't need to become a county commissioner. But the one thing I believe in is, and I've told other commissioners, I told everybody that I could, that I believe in people, process, and product. People not being the commissioners, people being the citizens, all citizens. The process, how we go through a process to determine what we're going to do. And third, the product that government puts out. In this case, it's communications with the people, it's listening to the people, it's talking to the people. So I believe that I, as a commissioner, that I owe it to everybody, whether you're opponent, and I'm I will not hide the fact that I am pro-trail, but I also will ensure that everybody gets the same chance to talk and voice their opinions. And to tell you the truth, if after the mitigation factors come back, if we can't mitigate things to make the trail happen, then we can't mitigate things to make the trail happen. That's all I can say to that. What I'd also encourage you all to do is, our website is getting updated constantly with new information. The grants that we're working on now, every piece of information we could find that was available on the grants, access or information from this will be on the website, that you keep informed, you keep involved, and if you have a question, don't think nobody wants to answer your question. Call one of the commissioners. Email one of the commissioners. We'll make sure, and I'll make sure if I can't answer it, I will get you to the people who can answer it. You might not necessarily like their answer, but I'll make sure that you get an answer for it. So that being said, I would like to go over, and I guess, where do we go from here? The next couple of minutes of spending, where do we go from here and what the plan? I do know one of the first things we have to do is we have to complete acquisition of the railroad, and whether it becomes a trail or doesn't become anything, I believe for future purposes, whether it becomes a trail or not, that the purchase of the railroad is the right thing to do for the county. If it's 20 years down the road and doesn't get used, having that availability, we will never have a chance to have something as a multimodal corridor that we could use for 25 years. It may not be a trail, it might be a light rail, who knows? But if we don't own that corridor, it certainly won't happen. So I think we talk about the next steps. So let me turn it over maybe to Brett, or how are we going to identify, where do we stand on the next steps as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think we touched on it. We're currently applying for a master plan. We have Carrie that's come on, replaced Jane, and she's submitting that application here this week, tomorrow. So I think, a lot of these questions are going to be answered once we get into the master plan. And I really look forward to continue to work with people moving forward in gaining more stakeholders in the process.
Okay, thank you. Jane, you have anything to add to that? Okay, let's, Chris, I was going to say, I was just going to turn it over to you.
So, it's been talked about a little bit already. We're in negotiations with the railroad right now to complete the acquisition. That's the first step to a lot of this process, and we're hoping to have that completed by fall. So hopefully have more information for you after that happens.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, here's what I will go ahead and ask you once again to ensure that you keep up on the web. We're going to do mailers. We're going to do flyers. We, even before we get to the official land use process, we may have another one of these meetings. I haven't determined that, but I think this was the first meeting in a long time that happened where, number one, I had a chance as a commissioner to meet a lot of people I didn't know before and a lot of citizens. But I believe, did I come into this expecting to change a lot of people's minds one way or another? No, but that wasn't my intent to do that. My intent was to get people together to talk and express their views. So that being said, is we will keep everybody informed, whether it be through the newspaper, whether it be through the website, through the radio station, of when we have events. You will ensure that you know about events. But if you ever have any questions, call one of the commissioners, call one of the staff member, and we will ensure, and I will ensure, since I convene this meeting, that we will get you the answers. And if you don't get an answer, let either myself or one of the other commissioners know. So again, we're about 20 minutes late. Lights haven't gone off. Probably the city, I used to be the mayor. Maybe they left them on for me. I don't know. But anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight.